Hey, it's Drybear. I've been getting requests to go over inventory management in Baldur's Gate 3. So today we're going to go over how to manage your inventory and your cluttered camp stash. But first, you should come hang out with me on my live stream. I'm live every single day on twitch.tv/Drybear. If you do come hang out with me in the community on Twitch, the next time you go to the bank or to the store, there's going to be no line in front of you. I just started my third playthrough of the game, so we're here at very early on in the game, Act 1, so no spoilers here, and we're going to go over all the mechanics and tips and tricks around managing your inventory, which at the beginning of the game can even start becoming quite cluttered, and there's a lot of tools that exist in the game that if you don't know that they exist or how to use them, they can very easily just miss your awareness entirely. Let's quickly cover some basics so everyone's caught up. I'm not leaving anyone behind. There's some basic mechanics here. If you press I on PC, you'll be able to bring up your currently selected character's inventory. This is going to show their stats. It's going to show their skills. You can look through all of their details. You can open their spell book and you can craft potions from this menu as well. But primarily it's going to have your paper doll character sheet for all of your gear, and it's going to have your inventory here on the right. There are options for sorting this though, so you can actually search for this. So if you're looking for a potion of some kind, you can actually type it in and then hit enter, and it'll filter through all the potions that you have selected or items that match the description that you gave it. You can also look for specific categories as well. Say you're looking for scrolls of any kind, or you're looking for, say, camp supplies of any kind. It'll sort through all of these and even look through bags that have these things in them. So you can very easily find what you're looking for by using the search feature. However, there's 4 different categories that you can use to sort your inventory, and they're all exceptionally useful. My personal favorite is sorting by type. The reason I like sorting by type is because type always puts your currency and your bags first at the top, and I personally like that. I like having that laid out that way. So if I'm looking for something that's in a bag, I can go look at the bags, and it always has my gold count at the top, which is really nice and very easy to utilize. But it doesn't stop there. You can also sort by weight, value, or latest, and these all have their own individual uses. Latest is super nice because when you hit latest, at the very top of your inventory up here, it's gonna go in order of recency, which means the items you just received. So if you went to a chest, you clicked open and you hit take all and you didn't see what was inside, and you're like, oh crud, I didn't see what was inside that. What was in there? Just go into your inventory, hit sort, go to latest, and you'll see that all the most recent items you just looted will be up here at the top of your inventory, which is super cool. You go to sort and you click by value. This will help you sell items at the vendor. Based on that, it will give you the total value for the entire stack, not the value of each individual item. So if you were to sell that bag or sell that stack or sell that item, that's how much value you would get for it, down to the lowest value at the bottom. And the last one is weight. It'll have the heaviest items at the top. And this is useful because you do actually have a weight limit. This is based on the stats of the character, but you can see your carrying weight here in the bottom side of your inventory. If this bar goes into yellow, you will become encumbered and you will move slower until you lower your weight. And then if you go into red, you'll become heavily encumbered and you won't really be able to do anything, and you'll be very, very slowed. Now, if you're a loot goblin like me, where you like to loot everything in the game, it becomes very quickly out of hand. You can start getting multiple pages of loot just going all over the place. And there's a lot of ways that you can manage this inventory. The first and the most obvious way to do this is to utilize the other party members that you have in your party. So rather than pressing I to open your inventory, you can press tab, and tab will bring up all the inventories for every character that you have currently in the game. And the same features exist here as they did on the first page for your inventory. You have your carrying capacity down here on the bottom. You have all your inventories here, and you can actually move these items between inventories. You can even equip items between characters. You can move them over, you can equip, you can put it on this other side. You can even have this equipment go over to somebody else. You can have that slot over. You can kind of manage everyone's inventory and everyone's details all at once as you go back and forth between inventories. And your sorting and searching features are still active here on this screen. At first, I didn't find these when I was first starting to play the game, but they're actually up here at the very, very top left. So you have these searching here up here at the top left. You can still do the same searching that you did. It just applies the search terms or the sorting terms that you specify to all inventories at once. So if I want to look for potions, if I want to look for arrows, I have no arrows in anyone's inventory. If I want to look for camp supplies, I can see that there are some camp supplies here across these different characters. I want to look for throwables, who can throw things So I have alchemist fire that I can burn the ground with. Someone has these here specifically. You can also sort all inventories. So if I want to sort by latest and see where the latest item inventory came from, we can sort by that. We can even sort by type to put gold in bags first, like I personally like. And if you wanted to from this screen, you can also still look at spell book across all characters at once. You can, if you're in a safe zone, you can unlearn or unprepare and re-prepare spells for each individual character all at once. You can look through their entire spell book individually, all of their reactions, all of their class-specific things. You can look at the character sheet for their stats, which you would find on the inventory. You can look at through all the characters at once, or you can even specify individual pieces, like look at his spell book only or her spell book only, and you can specify all of that pretty easily if you really wanted to look at that from this view. Next, around selecting items. Obviously, if you have a lot of items, you have many, many pages of items. If you wanted to move a bunch of items to someone else's inventory, it would become quite tedious if you had to click and drag and click and drag and click and drag and click and drag and just keep doing that over and over and over, because it would just take forever. Luckily, Larian has gone the extra mile and given us tons of ways that we can group select items that you would find on a normal operating system for browsing and exploring. The first one is you can actually hold down Control and select multiple items at once. You can see these have a white border around them. You can select as many items as you want, and then if you let go and then you click and drag like you would, you can see it's bringing all of the items over into that new inventory very easily, and I can do the same thing again to select those and put it down. But you're probably going to make the most obvious suggestion is that, well, it still takes a while to have to click through each one of these. Yes, it's faster because you're not clicking and dragging and clicking and dragging. You only do that once, but you still have to click through them to get them. Well, there's an even easier way to manage this, and it actually works by row as well if you really wanted to. You can select one item by left clicking it, hold shift, and then when you click the next item, it will go through in order all the way through every row and item all the way till the end and select every item between the item you started with and the item you ended with. So if you wanted to move someone's entire inventory, click the first item, hold shift, click the last item, and then move their entire inventory to somebody else. If you really wanted to, say you're swapping someone out of your party and you want to get rid of that, right? So you can kind of just do that and you can swap it back. You can get individual items and move them all over. All of that works great. Now, outside of just clicking and dragging items, you have a drop-down menu for each item when you right-click on it. And there will be tons of different options here. There's actually some really special ones that you want to be aware of. First off, if you find individual notes, when you right-click an item that can be interacted with, there will be a specific interact button here on the drop-down. So for example, if it's a note that can be read, when you right-click on it, there will be a read option that will bring up the note and you can read it. This is very good for exploring the world and experiencing things. There will also be individual items that are unique that have interactions themselves. So for example, a quest item that has an interaction, when you right click on it, it'll have a use button, which will cause a cutscene to happen. And there are items you can find that aren't even related to the story that have this kind of thing. So you want to actually kind of look through your items and see if there is an option to interact with it uniquely, because your character will do different things. Depending on what character you have selected, will have different interactions with it. So it's a fun way to explore the world is to right click on items and, oh, there is an interaction. Let me check it out. But the main reason I tell you about the drop down menu is because aside from just dragging items to other people's inventories, you can actually send items to different locations when you right click on it as well. So you right click on an item and you have the option to send to camp or send to a character. So say I wanted to give this potion here, this alchemist fire, over to Karlach. I can right click on it and hit send to Karlach, and it automatically goes into her inventory, which isn't super useful from this screen. But if you're opening a chest in the world and you're looting something, you're saying, okay, I don't need this. I want this on, say I found thieves tools. I want to put this on my utility character like my rogue or my ranger, because they're the ones they're going to be using it. So I can right click it and I can send it to them without having to ever even look at their inventory. It just automatically goes into their inventory without me having to worry about it. So I recommend you take good advantage of this, because again, you can do this by clicking once, holding shift, selecting all items, and click sending to as well. Get all those sent over to somebody else if you really want to get all that set up. So say I want to get all of these over to my caster because they're scrolls and they're wizard and they're going to learn from it. You can send it to that character by right clicking on it without having to even open their inventory at all. The other option is that you can just send items to camp as well. And so if you find an item that Maybe it's a heavy chest piece that you want to sell at a vendor, but it weighs a lot, so you don't want to have it on your character. You can just right click and hit send to camp. And what this will do is it will automatically send it to the stash inventory of your campsite, which is infinite and it has no limit. You can send everything to your camp if you wanted to, and you can just send it to the camp, get it out of your way, or if you're over encumbered and you're in the middle of a dungeon or exploring, just send a bunch of stuff to camp and you can deal with it later. In each campsite, including this very first one that you encounter at the beginning of the game, there will be a traveler's chest in it. It looks the same in all campsites, so just look for it and find it. When you left click on it, it is going to be your camp stash. So if you take this, and you can move windows, by the way, by moving these over, you can take an item and you can send it to camp and it automatically shows up in your stash, and you can put infinite amount of items in here if you really want to, just to keep stashing it up and storing it. Super easy, very nice. You can kind of get this all set up and then you can send things here. What I started doing on my third playthrough, or at the end of my second playthrough, is when I find things that I want to sell, like I gathered a bunch of armor pieces and random, weapons that sell for a decent amount of gold, I'll send everything to camp instead of marking it for wares. And then when I find a vendor that I can sell to, usually you find them in safe zones, I teleport to camp, load up my inventory, everyone's inventory, with tons and tons of those items that are sitting in my campsite. And I exit camp by going down here and leaving camp, which means you'll go back to where you were standing in the overworld, which is usually right in front of the vendor that you were on. Sell all those items and then you're good to go. They never encumbered you. You never had a problem. They're always going to be there available for you, which is pretty cool. Also keep in mind, if you are interacting with the stash, you can do this with any character individually. So if I wanted to, say I wanted to use Shadowheart to interact with the stash, I go over here to the left side of the screen. I can select Shadowheart, control her, go over to the stash, and I can have her interact with the stash with her inventory. Of course, I can still use the main character and I can grab an item and I can send it to that character as well, which means that just went into her inventory without me having to actually control her, which is very useful, by the way, because your character, once you go into the red here of over encumbered, you won't have the opportunity to move very much. That's why you usually just load every character up until they're full, teleport back to the vendor I was standing in front of, sell everything, and then I'm good to go. There's also a super neat feature, which is add to wares. When you right click an item and you click add to wares, you can see that this item here just got the arrow icon and then a silver coin icon on it, which means that this item is now marked for wares. What this means is that it is now put under a category of junk you want to sell, basically. So you now have this marked for wares, and if you go to a vendor, you can then sell everything that you have marked for wares, which is easy just for sorting and keeping your inventory managed. But if you go to a vendor, it's easy to just say, oh, look, this is already marked for wares. I can barter it away. But there's an even better way to do this, where if you go to a vendor at the top middle of the screen up here, you can see that it's set between trade and barter. When you have it set on barter, it's more of like an interaction where based on your rep with the vendor, you might want to get better or worse prices. So you have that option there. But if you just want to sell junk and you don't care about the price, you can change it from barter to trade, which is just a traditional vendor. There's a price, you pay the price, you get the item, you have a price, you sell the item, and they get that there. But on this screen, when you're on the trade screen versus the barter screen, there is a button at the bottom that is sell wares. And this will, when you hit this button, it will sell all items that have the marked for wares tag on them. So as you're going through the world, as you're looting items and picking up items, you can mark things for wares. When you loot them at first, knowing that you're just going to sell it, it's just junk, you don't care, right? Say you pick up this broken loot that I sold to him, you can right click this and set mark to wares and have your whole inventory sorted before you even leave the dungeon that you're in. And then when you go to a vendor, click barter to trade and just click sell wares, and everything marked as wares will sell. So you can see I've already sold a whole bunch of junk that I had picked up from goblins and stuff, all these little weapons and things like that, white items that don't have anything, no value to you other than to earn you gold. You can just sell those and pick those up and get lots of value out of that. You will want to be aware that each vendor has money on them. It's realistic in that, vendors don't have infinite money. You can see how much gold they have on them in the menu here for bartering. And if you go to trade, you can still see it at the top underneath their portrait, because obviously their gold isn't for trade. But if you go to barter, you can see it at the bottom. It's in their inventory. This is how much gold they have. So if you sell things to them, if you're selling items to them, eventually they'll run out of gold and you won't be able to sell more to them. You can get around this by either going and finding other vendors and selling them out, or if you really have a bunch of stuff to sell and you just want to get rid of it, you just have to progress the day, and the vendors will reset their gold value at the start of a new day. And so you can very easily just go to your camp and you can partial rest. So go here, click long rest, go to camp, end the day, and then partial rest without using camp supplies. It starts a new day. You can come back to the vendor. They'll have new gold, and you can sell the rest of what you have, or you can find another vendor that might have some gold around you. Next, you want to be aware of bags. Containers are huge in this game. They make such a big difference in you being able to sort your inventory and keep things together. So you have these options, the camp supply pack. If a bag is orange in quality rather than yellow, it means that it is a specific type of bag. Every character will come with at least one of these three: the keychain, the camp supply pack, and the alchemy pouch. In these, it will automatically collect camp supplies. The keychain will automatically collect rings that you find, keys for using for opening doors and things like that. And then the alchemy pouch will automatically collect for the alchemy supplies, herbs, and things like that you can use for your alchemy crafting. Which, by the way, these are programmed to automatically pick up items that you might find inside of that specific bag. So if we take a bunch of our camp supplies out here, we put it in our inventory, and then we move this bag over to Gale. When we put this bag back in our inventory, you can see that it automatically picked up all the items in my inventory that should have been in this bag, which are the camp supplies, which is awesome. So if you have, if you have some extra camp supplies, they didn't end up in the bag. If you don't want to just click and put them in the bag one by one like I'm doing, or click and drag and do that, the bags, including the alchemy pouch and the keychain, will automatically grab those items when they enter into a new inventory that may have items that should be in that bag. So it'll do that for you automatically. The other thing about containers is, outside of the one function containers that you'll have with your character, they also have insane usage in the game. So for example, any bag you come across, so if I were to drop this into the world, any bag that you come across, you can open it up and you can loot the items inside of it, but you can also just pick up the bag. And I recommend you have at least one extra container on characters to help sort your inventory and keep it organized. So rather than just opening the bag, taking the loot, which a lot of people do, they'll take all of these, put it in their inventory, and then they'll walk away and leave. And then you just have this bag sitting on the ground and they'll leave it there. However, you can just, instead of looting this and walking away, you can right click on the bag and click pick up, which means now you have a separate container inside of your inventory that you can use to keep your inventory organized and sorted. And by the way, you can, just like your normal inventory, you can sort what's in the bag very, very easily. You can open up your inventory from this. You can move these windows around. So if you wanted to have your inventory over here or over here, you wanted to have this bag here. And then what you can do is you can say, maybe this is just my potions bag, and I want all my potions in this bag. And what you can do is you can then take this container and you can put it on your hotbar. So if you needed, like, say, this is my consumables potions bag, and you can open this from your hotbar, click on the potion, drink it, you can throw it from your inventory, you can use it there, and then you can close it up. And that way, rather than having all these consumables on your bar this way, you can just have one item or two items that are just the bag, and then have that inventory there. So as you're going throughout the world, I recommend, just when you find pouches and bags and things of different kinds, I recommend picking them up. Also, I like having multiple kinds. Like, you can get a lot of these adventure packs laying around, or backpacks. I like finding like pouches and backpacks, things that have different icons so that I can kind of help sort them. So I put all my potions in a pouch, or I put all my, gear into a bag. You can also use this for selling, by the way. You can put all of your junk, like all your marked for wares, in a bag, and then you can go to the vendor and you can sell the whole bag, and it will summarize all the value that exists in that bag. You can get all of that from the vendor and just sell it at one go. So if while you're going through the world and you're looting, you're farming dungeons, you can just have your junk bag down here. And then as you get junk that you mark for wares, you can toss it in the bag, and then you can just mark the bag as well, add to wares, and then get that set up, and you're good to go. And then when you go to the vendor, you can just sell the bag, and that just makes your inventory so much cleaner, aside from just having these, filling up your inventory from top to bottom. And that covers inventory management in Baldur's Gate 3. Once you get used to using these systems, you get so much value from it, and you can make your inventory incredibly clean and easy to interact with once you know how all the systems work. So I hope this was helpful. If you found value in the video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people. and I'll see you on my live stream. If you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like down below. You can support me and my work on Patreon and view Patreon exclusive content, link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.